Your Sasstastic Life with hosts Trisha Rivas and Wendy Fredrigo.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, happy Friday.
Hello, excited to be here with you guys.
We have Penny Schmidt with us, and we are excited to talk about money.
Good. That's a good rendition. Good job.
Thank you.
I didn't think that's what we were talking about today, but okay.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, earlier you said it was money and sex.
Oh,
True.
I feel like those are two separate topics. Like they're so big, you have to separate them out.
But how are those two things related?
Well, we like
Yes.
to, there's an old, I don't know if it's a financial joke or a parent joke, but it
Yeah.
works with both. When we were younger, we believed our parents didn't have any money and were not having any sex. Turns out they had both. So, yeah, right? Like now that I'm a parent, it's like, ooh, okay, yeah,
Yes.
that is
Oh
true.
my goodness. All teasing aside, though, talking about money is uncomfortable for me. It always has been. So I'm hoping that you can shed some light on that with your wisdom.
I think that's fairly common.
Yeah.
And it seems somewhat specific to women. I don't want to speak for all women or all men, but I do notice a trend that women seem to have a harder time talking about it. And I think, I'm not a therapist, but I think it's partially due to we view money differently than men do. And so I think that then causes us, because we look at it differently, it means something different to us as women. Then I think it is more, feels more personal to talk about it, because we're not just talking about numbers and digits and Excel spreadsheets. We're talking about something deeper, actually, when we talk about money.
Well, we have our net worth, but a lot of women have trouble with their own worth.
Ooh, that's
So do you think there's something there? Like
I think a couple things. That's really deep, lady.
I had my Wheaties.
Ooh, that's your energy drink.
Yeah.
First, I believe women view money as a source of security. And once again, speaking in generalizations, all that aside, men tend to view money as, achievement, maybe a little bit of a competition. It's mathematical, it's financial decisions. Whereas women tend to view money as more of a security, a safety. We kind of have it's a thing out there where it's like women have a security gland that like acts up when things don't feel right, or when we start to feel like our security is in jeopardy. And we just look at money as serving a different purpose, which is good. It's kind of good that we don't view it the same as our male counterparts. But and so yeah, sometimes, and then I don't know how much of it is the societal view of women and what our jobs have traditionally been expected to be: caretakers, providers. And some of those, positions don't come with a lot of pay. And so then when we fast forward, are we feeling like, oh, if I'm doing work I love, then I don't need money, or it shouldn't be about the money? Is that something that we truly believe, or is that something that has kind of been pushed on us or forced on us as the caregivers, usually in the family? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth talking more about, and also bringing more light to it, to maybe, because you can't really change something or improve something until you start talking about it.
So growing up, when we're talking about society, I know my parents shared their money. They had one checking account. They had one savings account. My husband and I, we have separate everything.
Yeah.
And we each take responsibility for certain bills also.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that that is the norm, or do you think the norm is how our parents grew up?
Yeah, that
I would love to know.
Yeah, that is a really great question. I was the opposite. My parents were separate and still are. Same.
Okay.
She pays this, he pays that.
Yeah.
Same exact thing. But then my husband and I have one. It's joint. So you're kind of making me go, isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
I do think it's more common that they keep it separate. No,
Yeah.
I do see that a lot more.
Yeah.
I joined ours just because I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, and I was one more, and I have always handled the money, and it was just one more thing I had to do was manage one more account if I had to manage his too. So it was separate, but not really separate. He just really he just didn't have a great love of it. So I was like, well, I like it, so I'll just do it. But I do see a lot more separate. And then, of course, when you have a second marriage or partners living together that are not married, legally married, then that you want to keep it separate. You really do. You don't want to be combining finances or assets. It's sad but true. The marriage laws protect people in a marriage. And so when you're in a committed relationship, but you don't have that quote unquote piece of paper, if the relationship dissolves, it can be a big, big mess. There's no laws in place to kind of protect both sides. There's no procedure to dissolve this union, if that makes sense, when there's not that legal piece of paper that says that you're married. It's not a great system, but it's kind of the system we've got, if that makes sense. But that's why I think it's important to keep it separate.
Yeah.
If you're living in a relationship and living with somebody that you're not married to, you expose yourself to a lot of possible downsides, financially speaking.
Well, you mentioned that you stayed home with your kids for 20
Yeah.
years. So I would love to talk about that too, because there's a lot of women that choose that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of them, I'll hear women say, oh, I just stay at home. Like, just, are you kidding me? I run a household, I do all this stuff. And so how about those women that maybe they probably are feeling challenged that they're not financially bringing in money to the family? How do you help them know that there is a value to that?
Yeah.
Or if, like in your case, you did stay home and then you entered the work world, how do they know what their worth is when they're back in? How do they know how to ask for?
That is very hard. And I'll tackle the first one first. The second one's going to be an easy answer. And that is just that we need to talk about it more because nobody knows.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what our worth is. We don't talk about it. We women talk about everything except a couple things. The things we talked about earlier, money and sex.
Yeah.
We do not talk about money. And I was doing some research for a workshop I was putting together. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons for the wage gap. There's a lot of reasons for a lot of things. But one of the hypotheses is that women are not making as much money because we're not talking about it. And then if we talked about it, we could, reduce that wage gap. And that one of the theories of why we live so much longer is that we talk about that. Oh my gosh, I got this diagnosis. And you're like, oh, you got to talk to my person. Oh, you got to do this. Oh, I have this great whatever. Oh, this is what worked for me. And we're not afraid to talk about that stuff. And obviously, once again, a lot of reasons why women may be living longer than men. But isn't it interesting to think about what if it's partially because we're talking about it and we're sharing information and we're supporting each other in that way? And what could happen if we start doing that around money? So my answer is I did not know what my worth was when I went back to work. And I did go seek a friend. I took my offer for the job that I have now. And I saw a friend who is in the same field, owns her own business. And I was like, I don't know. Do I ask for more money? Are they going to think less of me if I don't? Right? Do I look like a loser if I don't ask for more money and negotiate? It's the firm I'm at is all men. And so kind of thinking that in my head too. Do I need to kind of look like a guy, so to speak, in my negotiation? And my friend helped me a lot. And that was really, really valuable. So once again, we're back to what do women do when we need help? We seek out other women. We seek them out. But as far as being home, an at-home mom, when one person in a relationship is staying home, it is challenging. I was the breadwinner, and then I became the stay-at-home mom, and then I went back into the workforce. And I've always had an interest in money. So I don't know if it's or personal finance. I don't know if it's a personality or if it's because of being at home. Does that make sense? And I'm not sure if that matters, but I've just always been the one that handled the money. So even when I was at home, I handled the money. I wasn't making the money, but I was still managing it and on top of it and budgeting and all of it. So I don't know if it's more that I didn't struggle with that. Oh, it's not my money. Or if it's because I was the breadwinner. I'm not really sure, but I do get frustrated when I hear, and I don't care if it's an at-home mom or a working mom, I do cringe a little bit when I hear, "Oh, my husband handles all of that." It just makes me a little gut punch, and I get nervous. I get worried for that person. Not because husband is doing anything wrong or anything that's, unwise, but that woman needs to know what's happening, where things are, um, where the money's going. Boy, it's very, you need to have a vote
Mhm.
as well. And anytime any person, husband or wife, male or female, kind of takes their hands off the wheel and kind of abdicates their voice in the situation, that's concerning. It's concerning.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we all know of someone in our life where they did stay home. They, didn't have a so called career outside of their home. And then divorce happened. And basically, they're screwed.
Devastating.
And it is
Devastating.
devastating. Devastating. So, how do you approach situations like that, Penny?
Well, I think this is obvious, maybe not helpful for me to say, but I'm trying to get to the women before they get to the spouse has passed or a marriage or a partnership has ended. Because when you get to that point, it's just devastation. And when a marriage ends, it becomes kind of like negotiating the end of a business deal. Becomes very matter of fact. And there are still women who don't have um, any credit in their own name or anything. I just talked to a person who has been divorced and spoke about how the only thing in her name was her student loan. So then to leave a marriage and get a house, even rent an apartment, is really challenging. And so that's the first thing we probably want to avoid, um, is not having anything in your own name, not having anything joint even. It can be a lot of pressure on the one person that's handling it. And it's kind of unfair to just kind of exit out of that role, to just be like, oh, my husband handles it. Oh, my wife handles it. Um, that's a little bit putting a lot of pressure on that one person because then they're totally responsible, 100%. And that's a little bit unfair. In my opinion, you should show up to the meetings, have a vote, have a say. But yeah, back to those women to the people that divorce or have a widow situation or a widower. Um, I just would encourage them to get involved, have things in your own name, and let's start talking about it. Let's start standing up and talking about it. And I don't know why it's
Yeah.
I don't know if
I
it
don't
started
know.
out as it's rude to talk about how
yeah,
much money you make, or I don't really know where that came from,
yeah.
why we don't talk about it.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, was it 1957 that women could even start getting loans?
Oh, I think it's later than that.
Was it
I
later
think
than
it was
that?
the 60s late
Okay.
60s or 70s.
Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah, you couldn't
I
have a
couldn't
bank
remember.
account without a husband's signature. You couldn't
Yes.
get a loan.
No.
Pregnant women really were discouraged from having jobs. I mean, in the
Yes.
60s.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like a long time ago for some people, but
Yeah.
But even with, I remember hearing that if you wanted to open a business, even in the 80s, if
Yes.
you wanted a business loan, your husband had to be
yeah.
a
Well,
cosigner.
because you didn't have, you had nothing in your name. There was nothing in your name.
So here's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering. If you think about it, when you enter in a relationship and everything's all gaga and you're in love and you're not going to sit down and say, oh, okay, let's get some stuff written down on
Right.
paper.
What's your credit score?
I was just
What's your
gonna
credit
say that,
score?
Penny.
Like, does there need to be some sort of process you go through? Like,
I think so. Absolutely. Maybe not on the first date. I don't know what the magic number is, right? Is it 5? Is it 7? I don't know. But it needs to be a conversation and you can ask it in a nice way. Like, oh my God, something comes up about student loan. Oh yeah, student loan's very challenging. Is that something that's stressing you? And then you can kind of like, if they got $200,000 in student loan debt, like, not that that's a deal breaker, but have your eyes open. Also asking an easy ask is, how did the parents handle money, because that's going to be a big maybe red flag. Sometimes a child can go the opposite way of the parents, and sometimes, so you got to think about that as well. But even just sharing your own journey, like my daughter is 21, and I know she talks about how, she might even say something that's not true. Like, my parents were so nuts or so strict, or, maybe it is true to her mind. I don't know. But she could bring it up and be like, oh my gosh, my mom talked about budgeting all the time, which is true. And make it a joke, and then see if, that opens up a conversation about parents and money. But it does need to be talked about. And I'm to the point, if I were young and know what I know now, I'd have that conversation a lot sooner than what we back in the day did. And of course, dating in your 20s is going to look a lot different than dating as older and a more established life. Like, nobody in their 20s knows, right? Like,
No,
they
we don't know.
got
We don't
debt,
know
they
what
don't have
the
any
fuck we're
income,
doing
they don't know
with
what they're
anything.
doing. But a little bit later, so you investing in your company's 401k, or
Okay, how about this? What are 3 questions? Because most of our audience are women that are more mature. So let's say you're newly divorced.
Yeah.
Let's say you had been married since you were 20. Here you are, you're in a new relationship in your 40s. What are the things that are super important to know?
Right. Well, the first big red flag, if it were someone else who had been married, I would wonder, most marriages end because of money fights.
Yeah.
And I would want to dig into that, and I would probably say, it's none of my business, but, how was money handled in your previous relationship? I would definitely ask that. Were they separate? Were there lots of fights? Was one a spender, one a saver? I would definitely just ask, how was money handled in your former relationships? You could ask that of somebody that hadn't been married, because they've probably had other relationships, right?
True.
I would definitely ask that. I would probably share, let me think. I'm trying to put myself in the scenario. I'm having a conversation. I would also ask, how is your relationship with money? Or how would you describe your relationship with money? And what I'm listening for would be those money scripts. So there's several. I think it's Dr. Brad Klontz has a book on money scripts, and they're grouped. You know, Status is kind of one of them. Kind of like an I'm not worthy, money is bad. There's some different ones. And so I would be listening for those. Is this person, every time they get some money, it seems to go away? Is this person all about money? And none of those things are bad, but you just want to be aware. And then, how aware is that person of the struggles that they have? Like, if they're saying, I really struggle with accepting money when it comes to me, boy, that's a whole different deal than somebody that's completely unaware and thinks it's the world's problem, or everything's too expensive, or it's not my fault. Little guy can't get ahead. I would definitely listen for that, because that's going to indicate a lot of other.
I love that you brought up the phrase your relationship with money, because when I was going through my coaching program, we really talked a lot about that, and I'd never thought of it that way. Yeah. That we have a relationship with money, and we did an exercise where we actually personified money. So like, I refer to money as Benny, Benjamin's, Ben Franklin. Benny. Got to have a meeting with Benny, right? So like, think about how you treat money. And so I was kind of like, oh my gosh, my relationship with money is, where are you? Like, I'm texting you all the time. Why aren't you here?
You up?
I thought you were going to be here. Are you here?
You up?
Are you here? Hello, money? Where are you? And I thought, boy, if I were money, I'd be like, that chick's crazy.
She is annoying me.
She won't leave me alone. But what was I doing for money? I wasn't saving it. Yeah. I wasn't respecting it. Yeah. So I think that is a whole nother thing to think about.
It really is. Yeah. And money has energy. Money has its own energy, right? Just like everything has energy, and you can attract it, you can repel it. And it's a lot of our worth, and can be tied up into that. Like, how am I good at keeping it? Am I good at saving it? And not to say that spenders are bad, right? Yeah. Sometimes savers can have their own situation, their own struggles around money. And so it's not that anyone is negative. It's just being aware, and then making sure that it's not causing problems in your life or in your relationships.
Are you someone that believes in manifesting money?
I absolutely
Me
do.
too.
I absolutely do.
Yeah, I journal about it all the
Oh
time.
yeah, all the time.
Journal and I pray about it.
Yep.
And to some people, that would be like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, that's
Aren't you
disgusting.
greedy? Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, no,
No.
again, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I know the more, as Wendy and I have said before, the more that I make or bring into my life, I'm going to be able to do more amazing
Yep.
things with.
You're going to bless others with it.
Mm.
There's only a couple things that you can do with money. You can spend it, you can save it, and you can invest it. And investing would include in others, donating it, giving it away. And so I 100% believe not having a clutched fist. If your hands are open, you're more open to receive. Being relaxed about it. It's the money comes to me when one of my favorite manifest that I journal. Money flows to me in great quantities now. It's one of my favorite ones. And you're right. A lot of people think that would sound greedy or like all I care about is money and status. I think that comes from people who view money as finite, and I just look at it as it's not a pie. There's not a pie with here's your piece, and my piece is a little smaller because yours was a little bigger. It's not like that, and it's ever expanding. And I absolutely believe there's enough for
It's energy.
it's energy. Just like you wouldn't say it's kind of like I'm going to draw a weird. I promise I'll bring it home, but this is going to be a little bit weird. It's kind of like health. You would never say, oh my gosh, I've been healthy for so many years that I think I'm going to be not healthy now so that somebody else can be healthy. I've had too much healthfulness.
I love it.
So I'm going to stop because I'm stopping you from being healthy or I'm stopping them from being healthy. So I better stop. We would never, that's dumb. That doesn't even make sense. And I view money in the same way, which is why we need to talk about it more. If we look at it as ever expanding, and just like with health, we talk about health because we don't view it as finite. You can be healthy and I can be healthy as well. It's not a zero-sum game.
Do you have money gurus that you like to follow? Favorite books like Dave Ramsey or Profit First or please.
Listen to you. Well, I do love Brad Klontz, who does the money scripts. I think that's fantastic. I'm a big fan of The Gap and the Gain. We'll have to look up who wrote. Yeah. Okay, you already know. That isn't about money. But it's about that attitude of not having enough. And let's not just look where we're going. Let's also look at how far we've come. And so I haven't read or kept up with her lately, but I was a big fan of Susie Orman for decades. We have done Dave Ramsey. My husband and I did that. It's a great program to go through. I have a few issues with Dave Ramsey about some things, but his message is great. He does it in an entertaining way. And it's a great place to start and learn how those budgeting. And he makes it fun. He makes it fun and not intimidating, which is how it should be. I don't know why we think it's so intimidating and boring, but it can be fun. So those are probably my two to start with. Yeah, I think it's important to, and there's just podcasts and there's so many things now. And I don't think it's just money. And I think some of the intimidation comes from we put pressure on ourselves. Well, I make money and I spend money, so I should know how to handle money. But it is a skill. It is a skill that needs to be taught, just like driving. Right? I don't know if you've had to teach drivers recently, but you forget that at one time you didn't know how to do anything. And it's the same way with money. Just because, we are around money and deal with it and pay our bills doesn't mean we really know.
What would you say are the top most important things that you want women to know about money?
Oh gosh, that is a great question.
Top 3 things that if you could only talk to women about 3 things with money, what would you tell them?
It's not as hard as you think it is. It's literally 5th grade math. Like the math is not hard. So don't be intimidated by the math or the numbers. I really want women to respect their feelings around money. A lot of times a lot of men are in the financial world and we usually are talking to men when we're talking about money. If we hire someone is what I mean. And sometimes we get bamboozled by, oh, you should, or here's the numbers. And we start to doubt ourselves and say, well, I feel like maybe this isn't a great idea, or I feel uncomfortable with this path. But we doubt ourselves because this professional that I'm paying is telling me I should do X, and I really am not sure doing X is the right answer. So I would say trust your gut, which sounds so cliche, but trust your feelings and speak up because you are probably right. I can't tell you how many times somebody says, well, I was suggested to do this and I was told that I should do this, but I just didn't feel right. Respect that. That is valid. Women are wired up that way. And if we push that away, we're really doing a disservice to the value that we bring to to that conversation. And then I had another one. Um, oh, when you are talking to someone about money, it is their job to make you understand, to help you understand. I feel like it's hugely important to speak in normal words when we talk about money.
Yes.
So if someone is speaking over your head, it is really challenging. But it's hard the first time to say, "I don't understand what you're saying. What do those letters mean?" It is very challenging to do that first time. It gets easier once you do it once. But it is if you're hiring somebody, if there's an advisor that's helping you, they're your employee and they're here to help you understand. They're not just here to help you grow your assets or invest better. Their job is to help you understand, and you deserve to understand it, and you're capable of understanding it. And I would not leave that meeting until I understood what they were saying. And if you have to draw it on a piece of paper, draw it on a piece of paper. So I guess all of those things kind of boil down probably to confidence in yourself and not just pushing aside, I don't understand it. So I'm not gonna, so therefore I don't deserve to have a say or be involved. And so that's just not true. You understand more than you think. You bring a lot of value, and you deserve to understand it. And it's really important because, um, not to digress, and we can cut this out, but the average widow is 57 years old,
Mm.
which when I was 20 seemed very old. And now that I'm 56, it's around the corner. So the odds that a female will have to handle her money on her own someday are very, very high. So let's do it let's learn and talk about it before it's forced upon us.
So we are now going to jump into a time machine. We're hopping in our DeLorean. We're going back for a few minutes to this picture. Wait, let me see. No, I wanted this one.
That is so hysterical.
I love that picture. It's just very fresh.
You've got the blue eyeliner.
Oh yeah. I'm impressed you can see that. It hasn't faded. The real
well,
actual picture
yeah.
hasn't faded so much. Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful.
So we have just a few minutes.
Yes.
And you are going to talk to her.
Oh wow. Oh my gosh.
What advice
This
would
is
you
why
give
people
her?
cry.
What would you tell her?
Oof. This is mean. I would tell her, can you change my voice so it doesn't sound like I'm crying?
Or have a tissue.
Oh my gosh. This is what a cool experiment. I would tell her, you're not too much. You're just right. And I would tell her, you are smart and you're going to do amazing things, and just stop worrying so much. Stop worrying so much and just enjoy it. Oh my gosh. Enjoy it. Enjoy the struggles, the learning.
Okay, we'll all need a tissue for this one.
I'm so sorry. Good.
No.
I don't like
Yeah.
to cry alone, so that's fantastic.
I love hearing you say this because I think that's one of the things that I love most about you when I met you.
Oh,
Is your energy, because I've always been that way and I've had so many people tell me I'm too much. Like, tone it down, Wendy, you're too much. Like, for so long, I held back because I was told I was too much.
Yes, absolutely. I've been
I
told that I talk too much, too loud all the time. And I'm not saying that it's okay to be rude
No.
or insensitive. And I do think that comes with age, where you get to a point where you learn, okay, this isn't a negative, but I can manage it. I don't have to be a 10 in every situation. But I'm not going to. So I learn how to manage it. But I'm also going to be proud of it. And when I need to be a 10, I can be a 10.
Yeah.
And when I need to be a 2, I can be a 2.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with age. But yeah, you're right. We all have that, not just people like us. But yeah,
Okay, so before we hop back in the time machine, we'll
Yes.
say, don't dim your light, girl.
don't dim your light.
Let it
that's
shine,
way
let it
better. Oh my
shine.
gosh. And then that doesn't make me cry to say don't dim your light.
Don't dim your light.
Don't put it hide it in our bush either.
yep, exactly.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
getting vulnerable. I have a hard time with that word. vulnerable with
It
us.
is a hard word to say.
But I believe that so many people are going to connect with us. And
Mhm. We were excited when we were talking, and Wendy and I both said that we hope that you chose the topic about money.
Yeah.
Because it is, and I truly mean this, it is just so easy to talk to you, Penny.
Oh,
I
that
mean, it
is
really
a
is,
huge
though. It
compliment.
really is.
Oh
And
my
I told
gosh.
you that when we first met, at Smoky Row. It's just, I know sometimes we internally feel things, especially like, oh my gosh, I'm a 10. I mean, how am I coming off? But you're amazing.
That you're very, very kind.
Amazing.
I am just honored you asked me to sit in the hot seat. It's a huge compliment to me, in my opinion, that you asked me to join you. And I just want to thank you for doing this and showing up and being there for the women out there, all the people out there. And I just appreciate you talking about the money because it is something we need to talk about more. And brave women like the two of you need to lead the charge as well. And so thank you for being on the front lines there.
Oh, Wendy and I have had many conversations where we have called each other crying about money.
Yeah.
I mean, we have.
Yep. There's a lot of emotion around it. There's
Yes.
just, and you can't separate it. You can't separate the money. You can't take the emotion totally out of it. It has to be honored in there in the discussions.
I love that.
Yeah.
I feel a lot better
I know.
about money.
Exactly.
How about you?
Yes. Most definitely.
My job here is done.
Your job here is done. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Your Sasstastic Life is produced by Apex VO. Go to apexvo.com. That's APEXXVO.